Voilà ce que ça fait d'être mort et enterré.
A hopefully I paused the music right. All right. Uh Welcome to the first episode of Take Time. This is going to be a show where we discuss random media, movies, games, etc. It really doesn't really matter. Firstly, I want to apologize because if there's any like random ass noise, it's probably me hitting the microphone on something because I don't have a stand for my microphone. But welcome to Take Time. I am Kay Hessel, and I am joined by Kale.
Hello.
We're going to be talking about the Paranormal Activity series as my Surface tablet turns itself off. This is a series I think a lot of people know and remember as being shitty, and so we went back and watched all the movies in order, kinda, to determine whether or not we still thought they were shitty. Turns out they aren't.
I really enjoy the series a lot. I don't know if that's to do with like nostalgia, because I watched these movies like as they were coming out, and I always got really excited for the next one coming out. But I think they're really good, and I think they get a bad rap for no reason.
I think that they're amateur, but like in terms of amateur movies, they're pretty good. Like as far as found footage, I'd still consider them better than a lot of found footage movies.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they're better than Blair Witch, but that's an unpopular opinion, I guess. So starting off, we'll start with the first Paranormal Activity. This one was released with a $15,000 budget, which I think it was kind of like highly touted for being really well done on such a low budget.
And how much did this end up making? Because I know it made like a lot of money.
Right. So this one made 193 million. So it's a pretty good turnover for a 15,000 budget. I also like that with the budget, it also meant they couldn't go out and get a big name celebrity, which a lot of the movies, in fact, none of the movies went out and got big name celebrities. Katie, is it Bleckenham, the main?
Katie Featherston.
Yeah, Katie Featherston was like the main big celebrity throughout the entire series, but even still, like, she's not like a household name or anything, which made the movie a little bit more fun to watch, maybe a bit more believable.
Yeah, that's why I like these two. There is in one of them. There's only one of them. One of the movies where I had recognized the actors, and I told you about that earlier. But we can get to that later.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do like that about it because it makes it more believable. It'd be hard to like make a found footage film with like even at like a B or C level celebrity. It kind of loses the believability.
I mean, we were watching Monster Trucks of all movies on Friday, and I kept making jokes about Detective Bill Tench being in the movie, even though he's a, I guess, B or C tier celebrity, and we still had like every time he would do anything, it was like, oh, I'm Detective Bill Tench, and I'm telling you that I'm confiscating your truck with a monster inside of it. Like, you wouldn't be able to have that same thing with Paranormal Activity. It would take away from the atmosphere of the movie. It's more endearing, too, seeing these, like, no-names basically walk around, and it feels more believable that it could be happening in real life because you don't really recognize the person as, like, oh, what is, like, Anne Hathaway doing right now? Why is she being attacked by this ghost kind of shit? But okay, so the first movie, for those that haven't seen it, by the way, there's going to be spoilers for all the movies because we need to talk about them. The first movie really had a pretty small cast. I mean, there's about 8 people in total, and I only wrote down 3 of the characters. We have Katie, who's going to be a reoccurring character throughout the entire series. There's a bit of deep lore to unpack with her, but get to there later. Katie is followed up with her boyfriend. Yeah, boyfriend Mika, who is the main main videographer throughout the entire movie. And then I put down the psychic because he was like the only other person with lines in the movie. And there was her friend too, who I saw her name earlier when I was looking at IMDb, but I honestly don't remember what her name was. I think it was like Amber or something.
Was he a psychic? I thought he was like a pastor or something.
They credited him as psychic.
Okay.
That's another thing too. A lot of these movies, the credits, aside from two exceptions, there are like no last names, which makes it a little bit confusing when you start to get into like the deeper lore as to like how do these reoccurring characters matter. Some of them just don't have last names, so they're just on like a first name basis. The exception being the Ray family in the second movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then marked ones, all the characters had last names for the exception of like 2 or 3 characters. But yeah, Mika, Katie, and then the psychic. And Mika is the main reason why the series, I guess, exists, because he's the one that decides to get a camera and start the whole shebang.
Yeah, much to Katie's. Katie does not want anything to be filmed, but he insists.
I remember her too. She was reluctant at first. I think she came around to it because she thought maybe it would help resolve the crisis. With it, maybe if they were to get footage of stuff happening as proof, it could help like a psychic or someone, a demonologist, resolve the matter. But yeah, she at first doesn't want. To her chagrin, he gets a camera and brings it into the household and does the whole typical guy thing where it's like, oh, maybe we can use it to film a sex film, which is a reoccurring thing.
Yeah,
in
that's
these
always
movies.
one of those.
So he gets a camera, brings it in. They start filming, and then shit gets worse because they're like communicating with this demon, and the psychic tells them that they should, see a demonologist because the psychic wouldn't be able to resolve the matter. It's much more serious. And Mika says, I don't, read directions, I don't use road maps, and I definitely don't talk to demonologists, so I'm not going to do that. And it pisses Katie off, understandably, because she still has this demon to take care of, and also now Mika's, like, fanboying over her dilemma.
And Katie's just, like, trying to make bracelets.
Yeah. Katie's, she's not simple by any means, but she has simple pleasures.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them is making candy bracelets. Mika's simple pleasure is he's into Bitcoin.
Yeah, he has the Coin That shirt on. He's always talking about stocks, which is great.
What was the other thing? Might need to get a little closer to the mic, I guess. Getting some hearing. Oh, yeah, they have, in all these movies, they have huge-ass houses, right?
Yep.
Especially in this one. It's a couple, single couple.
That's the thing. Mika is a day trader, which you can make probably good money being a day trader, but she is a student. I don't know how they're affording this, like, beautiful 2-story house in, like, LA or something. It's in California.
Yeah, however they're affording this giant-ass house with, like, 8 different bedrooms. Oh man, they had a name for it. Carlsbad, California is where everything's happening, which I don't know. In my mind, that's close to like San Diego. So I don't really know how they're affording this like $800,000 house off a day trader and a student. But
It's gotta be just family money, right?
It's probably family money because as we later find out, there's perks to working with demons and being in the occult. So, okay, Mika pisses off the demon, starts messing with them more. Mika gets a Ouija board, and through the use of... Well, he didn't do anything with the Ouija board, but he left the Ouija board out on the table, and the demon was like, well, fuck you guys, I'll just play by myself. Which, fortunately, we got to see on camera because Mika left his expensive camera on and running as they left. And then they come back and everything is fucked because of the Luigi board that he borrowed has been burned and things get worse. I think it's around that time too they find the photo, right?
Yeah, up in the attic.
Which is a legacy item in the series. And we see it reoccurring several movies. But they find this photo of Katie as a kid and it's burnt. And the story there is because her old house as a kid got burnt down.
But we find more later in the next movie.
So who knows?
Uh-oh.
And then Katie becomes possessed through Mika's failure to understand the real sincerity and severity of the situation around him. And shortly after that, Katie takes matters into her own hands and removes Mika from the picture.
Yes. And I think that some of the criticisms of this movie were that it was like jump scare based, or scares were silly, or they're like, what is so scary about like someone standing still, or like going out on the swing set outside, and I'm like, that's very scary. Like, first of all, jump scares are not necessarily bad. I think sometimes they're used weird, like not very well. But like, there's fewer things that have scared me in a movie more than just like Katie getting up in the middle of the night, staring at Mika for like 3 straight hours, and then like leaving.
Yeah.
That's it's spooky.
I mean, imagine like there's the whole sleep paralysis demon thing where it's like you're just laying in bed, you can't move, and there's someone at the end of the bed staring at you. Mm-hmm. I mean, Mika got that shit back in 2012 when this movie came out. 2009. Like, 2009 when this movie came out, and everyone was like, I don't get the big scare behind someone just staring at you while you're sleeping. It's like, okay, clearly you haven't had that happen to you, right? I mean, most of us haven't, because if we did, that'd be fucking terrifying. Yeah, there's a little bit of static. I think it's probably from the blue snowball microphone, so we'll just try not to move it too much. Hopefully it's not unbearable, and if it is, I apologize. Yeah, we could probably share one if we need to. I'll just have to figure that out on the fly, but we'll get there. Okay, so some of the criticisms that this movie had: the jump scares. Some of the scenes aren't scary, according to the skeptics. Mm. I would like to praise it, though, because there is a lot of, or a lack of, like, incontinuity error. Like, a lot of the stuff that could have been used to, like, pull me out of the movie and, like, make me start looking at it with a more skeptic eye weren't present. The only exception was one that I saw today when I was going through IMDb, and someone pointed out that they have a security system that they keep on at night, and they make a point to like show them turning it on at night. But in that one scene when Katie gets up to go outside, the alarm doesn't go off. So I mean, either she disarmed it or she just went outside, which again, it's like that's not too big of an incontinuity. Like, it's just she probably just disarmed it.
Yeah.
It also like looked good for a 2009 horror movie. But it also,
it
like, it looked like I imagined it would with the camera he was using. Like, it definitely was, they just filmed it with that camera. Where in later movies, we're supposed to believe that they use, like, a 2015 HD camera to film shit that happened in the 70s.
Right.
So...
we can talk more later.
But
yeah, overall, I think the first one is really solid. And I don't think they expected it to get so big. But that being said, like, they weren't too specific about explaining anything, that it left it open for all the other movies. And I think they did it pretty well.
Yeah.
Considering there probably wasn't a lot of, like, foresight into that.
No, and I can't really think of too many movies that did what Paranormal Activity did before it. I mean, there was definitely found footage, but in terms of, like, monitoring your house and, like, the shit that happens at night when you can't see it, I don't think too many movies did it, at least not well.
Right.
But most importantly, this movie had time-lapse scenes, which let me cheer and yell wildly every time they sped up time.
Yes, sometimes at night, spooky things would happen, and then suddenly the time code at the bottom would start going really fast, and then it makes me so happy every time I see it. Even if it's just Katie, like, sitting, staring. She's kind of, like, wobbling a little bit because it's all sped up.
Can you imagine if she was perfectly still? How fucking frightening that would be.
Yeah.
But it would be unbelievable because it's like, oh, this is like a 10-second scene of, like, real time, and they just, like, sped the clock up at the bottom. But it's Paranormal Activity 1, pretty decent. I don't think it deserves all the hate it gets.
I don't think so at all.
It's not, like, I don't think it's conventionally scary in the same ways a lot of like mainstream scary movies get away with being conventionally scary, but it still does have the jump scares. Still has like the supernatural thriller shit to it. I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, and I don't think it goes too far.
Paranormal Activity 2.
Before we do this, we maybe get rid of this mic for now.
Yeah, we can try cutting it down to one mic. So I'm gonna mute this mic and get shit going.
Oh, Faye says, have you guys seen the first movie's alternative ending?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, we should probably talk about that.
Okay, yeah. Go right ahead.
Yeah. I like we got the DVD. And the nice thing is that when you watch the movie, it'll just give you the option to watch the alternative ending only. Because we were about to, like, watch the whole movie and just fast forward to the end and see what it was. And yes, it doesn't. If that was the ending they had gone with, the other movies probably wouldn't have been able to happen.
It breaks the canon.
Yeah. So I'm glad they didn't do that. Plus, I just don't. I think it would be less scary if she just. I don't want to say it.
I don't want to say it either. But,
I think it would have been a lot. I would have liked it less if that had been the ending.
but you brought up another good point too, and this is one that I forgot about in the notes. I like that, for the most part, the first 4 movies didn't have opening credits, like opening trailers and shit before the movie. It was just you put the DVD in or you rented it, and it went immediately into the movie.
Yeah.
And I love that. It made it feel so much more immersive as like a found footage thing that it was just you put the DVD in, black screen, play. I like that a lot.
Yeah, me too.
It wasn't like this movie brought to you by Paramount Pictures. Alright, let's see about switching these mics over. I'm gonna mute the mics and I get to play a word music real quick. I should probably also get rid of the thing saying stream starting soon because I believe it's already started. So, Paranormal Activity 2. So this one's budget, it jumped up from $15,000 to $3 whole million. And it came out the year later because it was following the same horror movie trend of each year a new one comes out in theaters. Box office does great. Everyone gets paid. Everyone goes home. But this one, I believe, net less money than the first as far as profit. 'Cause this one net 177, and the first one net 20 million more, or 15 million more. So a little less successful, and it cost a bit more. But this one was a bit more ambitious because we had more than just 2 characters. So the second one, we have the Ray family. And the Ray family is kind of very important to the entire series canon. The Ray family is Daniel and Kate, or Daniel, Christy, Allie, and Hunter, who will be a very important linchpin in the entire series. And alongside them, we have secondary characters of Brad, Martine, who is the queen, and the surveillance crew. Do you remember how this one started?
Were they just like talking by the pool?
So this one started with they had a break-in, or they suspected a break-in, because they had come home and seen their house was trashed. So I believe it was the dad started filming everything with a camera he had, because everyone has cameras in Carlsbad, California. And he starts filming everything, I'm assuming for insurance reasons. But we see the house is completely trashed.
Yeah, that's right.
And so in response to this, to make everyone feel happier and more safe, they decided to get security cameras installed, to which the surveillance crew for the security cameras points out that you won't be able to get away with anything. We'll always be watching. Which is really fucking weird.
I like that they changed it up and they did security cameras, but it's funny. I know you were complaining in the beginning, like, why are they filming everything? And that was continued throughout the other movies. Like, literally, why are we filming this? And I was like, oh, there's security cameras. Okay, that's going to be taken care of. But they still have the handheld everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's funny because you'll see them like on the security camera, like with a handheld camera in their hand. It's there's a lot of recording going on.
There is, and it brought up a main criticism I had for most of the movies going forward, and including the first one, is exactly what you said, is why would you film some of this? And one scene I bring up, and whenever I say this to like people who I'm explaining this movie to, is the scene where Allie comes up to Christy, who we just saw witness a poltergeist, essentially, in her kitchen. She was home alone, she was in the kitchen, she fucking had everything fly at her, and she freaked the fuck out, as anyone would that had like copper pots fly at you. But she's freaking the fuck out, and Allie witnesses her at the end of it after she's cleaned everything up and she's going upstairs, and in complete distraught like state of mind, Allie goes up there with the fucking Samsung HD recorder and goes right up to her face and is like, "You look really upset right now. You want to talk to us about it?" It's like, you wouldn't do that.
This is like a private conversation.
Hey, you look like you just had a life-changing event occur and you look completely mortified. Do you want to talk to the camera? Like, we saw that with Mika and Christy in the first one. Or Mika and Katie.
Yeah. But before we go any further, I would like to say that I think this is my favorite one out of the series.
Oh, yeah.
I really like this one a lot.
I think it was probably the scariest, too.
Yeah. They managed to make a follow-up to the first one that, like, made sense. Was different enough from the first one that it was really interesting. They had new elements, and they even, like, built on the first one and made that one a little better. So overall, I think it's like a really, really great movie, and it has one of my favorite jump scares like ever, like in any movie I've ever watched.
I'm blanking on what that is. Do you want to share it, or do you want me to share the plot and then you can share that?
It's this. Okay, let's talk about the plot a little bit, and then we'll get into it.
Okay, so the plot for this one's a bit more than just Mika buys camera, ghost shit happens, Mika dies. Plot for this one, they occur around the events of the first movie, which we were reminded of because we get kind of like timestamps as to how many days before Mika's death. Very bluntly, very beautiful, very poetic. But I wrote down a little brief synopsis. The movie starts with footage of the house after the break-in, and then they get security cameras to catch if anything like this ever happens again. Activity starts again, seemingly around Christy. Like, most of the stuff only happens to Christy. Like, other inconveniencing shit will happen to Allie and Daniel, but it's mostly Christy who it targets. The helper, Martine, she picks up on this because she's Catholic as fuck, which is another thing that happens throughout the series, but whatever. So she starts trying to, like, resolve stuff happening by, like, doing prayers and burning sage around the house, and this freaks Daniel out because he's a skeptic and he doesn't believe in any other ghost shit because he's one of the main kinds of character in these movies where there's at least one skeptic, barring one movie.
You have to have that character in there, though, to make it interesting.
I guess so, yeah, because then you're sitting on your couch screaming at Daniel because you have the dramatic irony at hand.
Mm-hmm.
But Martine burns sage, and Daniel doesn't like that his house smells like a sausage factory, so he kicks her out. And then shit gets worse.
There's a haunted pool cleaner in this one.
Yeah.
Which I think is really great.
It's everyone's favorite character is the haunted pool cleaner.
I stand the haunted pool cleaner.
And then after Martine gets kicked out and activity gets much worse, Christy actually gets possessed, which happened to Katie in the previous movie, and it's fitting that her sister Christy is now getting possessed, which we understand a bit more as to why later. And then...
Yeah, so all of the paranormal stuff is happening to Christy, Katie's sister, which is connected. I guess, spoiler for the movie, they end up passing the demon to Katie because Daniel and Allie are worried for Christy. Daniel finally cracks, and he's like, okay, I'll take this seriously. I don't know what the point was at which he started taking it seriously, but he did. And then he, like, invites Martine back. And I'm like, yes, Martine is back.
Yeah, Martine the Queen. But what they did was they took that photograph, which we saw in the first movie.
It turns out it hadn't been lost in a fire, like Katie thought.
And so what they found out is that you can pass on the demon to another person within a bloodline, I believe it was. But you had to have like a totem to use to pass it on. So what they used was a picture of Katie to pass the paranormal shit onto her, which is a little bit confusing canonically because we're led to believe that shit was happening to Katie and Mika before they burnt that photo. Because I think during the pool scene, Mika was talking about how Katie's been having weird shit happening to her anyways.
I think the photo probably just had been there and they just didn't find it for a while.
Okay. That would resolve that. Also,
because it seemed like a weird room they don't really go in, like the attic access. I don't know.
Who snuck into that attic and placed that photo in there? So anyways, they pull the demon out of Chrissy.
Don't think about it too hard.
Yeah, it's a Paranormal Activity movie. Oh shit, who cares? They pull the demon out of Christy with the photograph, and then everything seems to be like all peaches and cream. And then shortly after that, Katie makes her return. I mean, she was in the movie earlier, but she just literally returns to the house. And she does one of her favorite moves, which we see all throughout the entire series, is the neck snap.
Mm-hmm.
So she snaps Daniel's neck, and then she goes upstairs and uses the force push to throw Christy into the camera while she's holding Hunter, which we find out was her objective for coming over, because she then takes Hunter and leaves.
Like, lady, you're gonna damage the goods. Get the baby first.
Right. You would think if she has the power to use the force, she would, like, I don't know, do that thing where she's like, you want to put the baby down. And then Christy's like, holy shit, I don't want this sticky thing.
Oh, shit, I do.
Yeah, and then she puts the baby down, and then she throws her into the camera. But obviously we needed to have the scene occur that way because she needed to take Hunter, and we needed to be scared because we're the audience. If we're not scared, then what's the point in the movie? But that's the main plot of it.
My favorite jump scare ever is when there's a scene from the security camera, and it leads up, like, every now and then they'll be, like, in the kitchen, and, like, one of the pots is hanging up, and, like, it'll fall down, or, like, they'll rattle a little bit. And then there's one scene where it's, like, the middle of the day, Chrissy is just in the kitchen, just, like, trying to read or do something, and it's very quiet, and then suddenly all of the cabinets open all at once, and, like, all of the drawers, and it's, like, broad daylight, and it's so good.
It's fucking terrifying.
It's so scary, and that doesn't happen a lot when, like, the scary stuff, like, happens when it's, like, light out.
Yeah, in any horror movie.
It's really rare.
Because
I think it's really great, because you're not expecting it.
The horror trope is, like, only wicked shit can happen at night.
Mm.
And it adds to the scariness when you can't 100% see what's happening. But this ghost is bold as fuck, and he's upset because now he smells like sage. So he, in a delighted mood, decides he's going to cook himself another kind of tinction and remove the sage scent from him. And the only way he can do that is by opening every pantry at 2:30 in the afternoon.
It's great.
It is really good. And I think that's another thing. This movie, out of the 6, is by far the scariest to me. And maybe it was just because I was high when we watched it. But it was scary as shit to me. And even
Had you seen it before?
I'd seen it like once, maybe like 2012.
Okay.
But it had been a while. I didn't remember much about it. I remember the neck snap scene, and that was about it. I remember thinking that movie was shitty because it was another Paranormal Activity movie. But it was frightening.
There's another scene in this movie that I really love, which just because it's so confusing, and you can never really quite understand what's going on. There's a scene where, like, isn't it Christy gets into the basement with Hunter, and then Daniel goes down there to, like, investigate what's happening, and it's dark. They have, like, the night vision on. Every now and then there's noises happening, and every now and then you can just see a baby Hunter just, like, hobbling around, and it's noisy and everything's shaking and they're screaming, but you can never tell what's happening, and it's, like, so scary and so, like, claustrophobic and terrifying.
Yeah, it had that great, like, night vision filter.
Yeah,
everything's green, which I can't talk shit about that because I love Rec, and that's, like, the main color of Rec is night vision green.
I know, I'm excited to watch that again too.
But
yes, so I love the second one a lot. I could probably keep talking about it, but
well, good, because I have a couple of things I wanted to point out.
Okay.
So this movie being the second one, there's certain parallels that you got to put together now that the franchise is becoming larger. So a couple of the main tropes, I guess you could call them, that I noticed in Paranormal Activity was the houses are always huge. as we talked about with the first one, it was a huge like 6-bedroom house in Carlsbad, California, off a day trader and student's budget. I don't remember what the dad does in this movie. Do you?
No.
I don't think
Or
Christy
Christy.
worked. I think she was staying home on maternity leave for the baby because she just had Hunter.
Yeah.
So again, we have two people who are making a questionable amount of money, and they have a like $1.2 million house.
At least. Easy.
At least. So that was another thing that was fun to see is like, oh, we get to do like an HGTV paranormal activity thing where the houses are all beautiful and the ghosts are all deadly. But another thing I noticed was that now we have a second male character who is a skeptic. And it gets to the like that gets diverted a little bit in the third movie because the skeptic is a female character. So at least it doesn't continue the only guys are skeptics thing, but we at least see another skeptic as a character trope. The other thing that's really important to point out is that this movie did have time-lapse scenes.
It did?
Yeah. I think there was like 2 of them.
Oh, yeah. Woo!
Yeah. But the worst part about this movie is that there is a dog that is questionably hurt. I don't know to what degree, but it was hospitalized.
That's true.
So that's shitty. We can't be certain that Martine got hurt, though, so this movie's like an 8 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, Martine knows that's out.
Martine knows... No, every, like, Catholic abuela in this movie franchise immediately knows what the fuck is up. If we just had them holding the camera, like, it'd be good. They'd just put the camera down, they would do their prayers, they would call, like, the father over, and then we wouldn't have but, like, 20 minutes of movie. It'd be great. We could make, like, a YouTube series off of that. Paranormal Activity 3 increases the budget to $5 million. In fact, all the movies increase in budget, which I guess, like, if you're going to keep making the movie, you got to pull all the stops, right? But it increased in budget, but this one did make a bit more money. So the first 2 made under $200 million, but this one had $5 million budget, and it profited $207 million.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Smaller cast, and this one takes place in Katie and Christy's like childhood.
Yeah, so far we've just been going backwards because 2 was a prequel and now we have a prequel to the prequel.
Yeah.
And in these cases like this where they make a prequel, I wish they didn't do like 2 and they just gave it a different title because it seems weird.
Well, movies 5 and 6 got different titles.
See, that's what I don't get. But anyway, that's not the point. This is probably the one I have the least amount to say about. I don't hate it. It's not my favorite, though.
It was, like, aggressively mid-tier in, like, the grand scheme of movies. I think it probably was, like, 3 out of 6 for me. But this movie, we have child Christy and Katie. We also have their mother, Julie. And then Julie's boyfriend, Dennis, who is a wedding filmographer.
Yeah.
As well as the introduction of the main matriarch in the series, Grandma Lois. And Grandma Lois's house should get its own character credit, honestly. It's pretty recognizable throughout the series.
Yep.
And then we have Dennis's friend, Randy, and the babysitter, Lisa, who is in the movie for all of 2 minutes and still made an impact on me because I remember her flirting to the desk fan camera. But I'll go into the plot real quick. It takes place in Katie and Christy's childhood. Christy has a best friend, Toby, who no one really bats an eye at because everyone has imaginary friends. He's an imaginary friend, not just a best friend. I apologize. But Toby likes to be kind of mischievous and likes to have Christy be mischievous herself. Dennis and Julie, again, they don't really bat an eye at it, but Dennis starts filming stuff around the house because he... Why? Why was he filming?
I don't know.
Yeah, he's just filming. It's his job. He's just filming shit.
For fun.
Oh, you know what it might have been? Is because they went to film a porno, an amateur porno, and then the earthquake happened. And then in the earthquake, Dennis noticed that when the dust was falling from the ceiling, it made the outline of a man.
Oh.
So he probably was like, oh, that's weird. And so he started trying to film extra shit. Which, it goes to show that Dennis isn't working. Is why I say that. Julie's working because
Well,
she's
if you're a wedding photographer, you probably get gigs, but you probably don't like go to work every day if that's your only gig.
yeah. But he's definitely not getting too many gigs because he's got a lot of extra film that he's using to film everything.
That's the other thing with this one is that it's all on film. It's not digital.
It's supposed to be, right?
This is 88.
Yeah, but it looked phenomenal. Like it did, unless it was supposed to be like on film, then they remastered it, and that's why it looks phenomenal.
But yeah, it doesn't look like it was
80s
shot on home video.
No. But Dennis is likely, yeah, he's probably paid commission through gigs, right? But Grandma Lois takes the opportunity to tell Julie that she should find someone that can support her and her daughters, and that Dennis is kind of a deadbeat because he's always hanging out at home and shit. So that's something to think about, something to chew on while we move forward in the series. But so Dennis he's filming shit at home, and then he starts noticing more shit happening with Katie and Chrissy's imaginary friend, and he at one point takes like a bunch of random shit around the house to make like custom camera stands. He does like the desk fan rotating one, which is a brand new device in the Paranormal Activity series, where now we can not only see one but two rooms.
Whoa.
Yeah. There's also a chandelier in this movie that gets broken, which is a trope that happens throughout the movie. I don't remember if anything happened like that in the second movie. I don't think the ghost tried to drop a chandelier on anyone's head. I
don't know.
But it did happen in the fourth.
But Katie and Christy are kids, obviously, in this one, and it follows them. I feel bad for them because they have this big house. I don't know how somehow they don't have like a formal bedroom for these kids, and they're just kind of like in the upstairs loft area. Like they don't have walls or a door.
Yeah.
Like there's just a weird setup for this like a big house. Like they don't have another bedroom or something.
It's definitely the most dinky of the Paranormal Activity houses. It's
bizarre. Like there's high ceilings and stuff, but like it's just a one bedroom house. What's the deal?
Open floor plan only for the children's loft room, which has its own personal bathroom.
It's bizarre.
It is. I'd say probably like a $700,000 house. The cheapest we've seen yet. Yet. But there is one really fun scene I liked in this movie, which was the Bloody Mary scene.
Oh, yes.
When Katie and Randy Randy is Dennis's co-worker, I think. His friend, his buddy that helps him with filming.
Yep.
Katie and Randy are playing Bloody Mary because Katie just absolutely has to play this new fandangled fad that all the kids are playing. So she calls Dennis into the bathroom and they play Bloody Mary, and then shit hits the fan hard. And I think at one point, like, Dennis gets, like, slashed across the gut or something.
He gets a physical injury.
He's not doing good. And I think shortly after that, he takes medical leave and never comes back.
Yeah, I don't blame him.
There weren't any pets harmed. I made a note of that. I was really upset about the second one harming a pet, but there were no pets harmed in this one. I made a point to mention that at least $10 million of the budget had to have been on film that Dennis was using, because he filmed like 12 consecutive days of like 8 different rooms.
Seriously, it's a lot.
We knew it was a lot because he made a point to mention he had to change the batteries on the cameras. Okay, this movie did have time-lapse scenes though, so it's good to go.
Good.
So I would put 3 at like a 6 or a 5. It wasn't bad, but it was. Oh,
I think they started like hamming up the like ghost scenes a little bit. Like it was still kind of pretty outlandish in like the first one even. Like people were getting dragged down the stairs and stuff. And this one I think there was like a little. It was starting to get like a lot.
Yeah.
There was a lot of it.
And then there's the ending.
And there's also one of the jump scares in here. They kind of just like copied the cabinet scene from 2, where it was very similar.
What was the cabinet scene?
In 2, when all the cabinets open at once. And in this one, there's a scene in the kitchen. It's not during the daytime, but the fan like It's like the fan camera. It points to like the front door and then to the kitchen, and then the front door and the kitchen. So it points to the kitchen, everything's fine. We see the babysitter like go to the front door, and then it pans back. Everything that had been in the kitchen is like up on the ceiling, and then all falls down.
And there's no one around.
Which is honestly a pretty cool jump scare.
But it's
I will say that.
A worse version of the second movies.
Yeah.
This movie also brings in the legacy of Grandma Lois's house, because what ends up happening.
Yes, I forgot the ending.
Yeah, so before we move on to the fourth one, it's probably very important to mention the most important detail of this movie are the legacy things. So they legacy the photo of Katie. We get to see that photo taken of her before she goes off to school. That's the same photo that's used by Daniel to remove the demon from Christy and put it back into Katie. And it's the same photo that Katie and Mika find in the first movie. We also get Grandma Lois's house.
Yep. The parents, Katie's and Christy's parents, are a little concerned about the kids. I think it's like, oh shit, this is getting real. So they decide to go to Grandma's house to stay for a little bit for things to cool down.
Which this house makes a reappearance throughout the entire series, but we soon find out it's because Grandma Lois has ties with an occult that we later learn about in marked ones called the Midwives. So Grandma Lois made a pact with a demon. I don't remember what the demon's name is. I apologize. But
Toby?
Well, that's the manifestation of him, right? Maybe his name is Toby, but I gotta imagine it's a pretty lame name for a demon. Please don't haunt me. So she makes a pact with Toby that she will give their firstborn son for ritualistic purposes. And in exchange, they, being Grandma Lois and whoever is part of the midwives, get youth and fortune, which is likely where the money is coming from to buy these extremely expensive houses.
Yeah.
But Dennis and Julie take Katie and Christy to Grandma Lois's house to cool down while shit is flying across their other house. And in doing so, basically sign their death warrant, as we get to see Julie suspended midair and then thrown down the steps. And then Dennis does the scene from Suspiria where he gets turned into a human pretzel shortly before the movie ends with Katie and Christy running over to Grandma Lois and walking off screen.
That was fucked up too when I saw him like break his back like that. I was like, Jesus Christ.
Now, I want to point out that I was super excited. The fifth movie we're going to talk about, fifth or sixth, one of the two, is the Ghost Dimension. Yep. I was super excited because the marketing for that was you get to see the haunting, right? So when that movie starts, it starts with that scene from the end of 3 where we get to see Dennis crumpled backwards like a tube of toothpaste. I would have hoped that if I was seeing the haunting, that I would have got to see the demon like pull his arms back or some crazy contortionist shit. But that doesn't end up happening. Now, there's a reason probably behind that we can get to later, but...
Without saying too much right now, they had to like retcon what happened in Paranormal Activity 3 a little bit, which is annoying.
It's a trend,
and
though.
I don't care for.
It is a trend.
They managed to do it without doing that for the other one, so I don't know what happened.
No, this the third one starts with the end scene from the second one.
Yeah, but they didn't like change the events. They just like gave more context to them, I feel like.
Oh, true. Yeah, you're right. My apologies. But it is a thing that happens a little bit. I mean, Grandma Lois's house is awesome. I would love to go spend some time
as fuck.
there.
They got like a framed picture of a unicorn on the wall.
Mm-hmm. They got the like garden terrace walkway leading to the. There's two mother-in-law houses on this property. I've counted them. There's 2 of them.
Yeah.
Grandma Lois's house is the extra money that didn't go into Dennis and Julie's house, plus our regular house's money. Like Grandma Lois's house is like 1.8 million. Come on, it's huge. It's like 4 houses.
There's like a huge room with like a all glass ceiling. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, someone gets thrown through that later on in the series, huh?
Oh, I guess so.
I would have to watch the movies. I wouldn't know. So moving on to Paranormal Activity 4, which I've made the mistake of... I say mistake as if I didn't do it on purpose. I named it Paranorman 4 on my notes. This one's budget went up another $1 million to $5 million. I think the previous one was $3 million. But nonetheless, $5 million. and then it profited 142. So it made about 50 million less than the previous movie, and it cost about $1 million, $2 million more to make. I think at this point people were starting to be reluctant to go see another Paranormal Activity movie. Maybe the third one put a bad taste in their mouth.
Maybe they're just getting a little tired.
It's one of those, again,
because these movies are a little bit repetitive.
We didn't watch them we didn't do each day a new movie. Like, it took us about 4 weeks to watch all 6.
Yeah. But I'm still here for it. I still want to watch them all.
Yeah. It's a good thing we already did. But it came out in 2012, so it's following again the trend of each year a new movie comes out. This one's cast was it's following again the third movie. The family didn't have a last name. I mean, we know that it's Katie and Christy Ray.
Yep.
So we can assume that the Ray family is not Dennis, but Julie Ray and Grandma Lois Ray. We can assume that, but we don't really have any credits to prove it. And I don't believe anyone said anyone's name anyways. But this is another unnamed family, but it broke the trend of Carlsbad, California, because this one is in Who Gives a Fuck, Nevada.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So this one happens a few years after the events of the second movie. So after Hunter has been kidnapped by Demon Katie.
Finally, we're out of the prequels.
We're out of the prequels. We're finally moving forward in time. And so it starts...
Yeah, so give us a quick synopsis.
Starts in Nevada. We see that there's this family consisting of dad Doug, mother Holly, daughter Alex, and their adopted son Wyatt. They live across the street from a single mother and son who is Katie and Robbie. And the old heads in chat will probably pick up on that Katie thing in a little bit, huh? But the movie starts off with Katie needs to go to the hospital, and so the family of Alex, Doug, and Holly and Wyatt are watching after Robbie, who is fucking hilarious to watch.
This kid is so funny. He gets to the house, and he is like opening the contents of his bag, and he's like, "This is Shipshuba. She's very old." And it's like a little sheet. I'm like, hell yes. And he's like, "This is my special fork." And Alex is like, "What's so special about it?" It's like, "It's very old."
Well, we have forks here. You can use our forks.
No, this fork is special.
Yeah.
I don't think the special fork means anything. I just like that they put it in there.
Yeah. Robbie is funny as shit. When they introduce him to Wyatt, he slowly extends his hand for a stiff handshake.
This kid is like, what, he's like 5, 6?
Sure. Yeah, he's a child.
He's too young for me to give him a handshake.
He's young as shit. We also get to watch Alex and her boyfriend. I don't know if they're official. I will say, this is the only time I've recognized an actor from something else in one of these movies. The actor who plays the boyfriend, Ben. He was in, I think, what I recognized him from was True Jackson VP, a television show that did air on Nickelodeon. So that was weird. I was like, oh. So we got a big name.
Kind of. I mean, not really.
But
I also just want to say before we get too much, before I forget it, the main character, this girl Alex, she has 2 different Beastie Boys shirts in the movie, which I really, really love, and I think about it all the time.
Yeah, she's a huge Beastie Boys fan.
She's a Beastie Boys fan.
So
we hear her listening to Rob Zombie in the movie. It's great.
She's great, man. The only downside is that she's 15, which makes the fan service a little bit weird. Because there's like a scene where she's like helping... Oh, fuck, was it Wyatt or something like that? She's like walking in front of the camera and the dad's like filming her and it's just like her ass down, basically. It's like, that's weird. That's weird that you would film this like that or be filming at all. I
do like, though, she's 15 and then the Wyatt's like, I don't know, 7, 8.
Something, yeah.
He's young, but she like really cares for him and, you know, she likes playing with him and wants him to make him feel comfy at all times.
Yeah, she's like a big sister.
Yeah, it's really cute.
Her character does feel genuine. A lot of these characters do feel genuine. Like, I I would have given too much shit to this movie had I not rewatched them, where I would have thought the characters felt disingenuine or like the scares were like unpractical or you wouldn't expect them to happen. But a lot of the things in Paranormal Activity, the characters, they seem real. Again, it comes back to like how nice it is that it's not big name actors playing the characters, because they do feel like real people for the most part. I mean, it makes sense that there'd be a skeptic. You were to tell someone that their house is haunted, they'd be like, "Nah, fuck you." Like, it makes sense that their house is, or that the person would be skeptical. The characters all feel like real, genuine people. So it does kind of feel like a slice of life in between like the shit getting thrown around on camera.
For sure.
But I'll give a brief synopsis. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I guess I can get into it a little bit. This is So anyway, this family takes in Robbie because his mom, Katie, has to go to the hospital, so he doesn't have anyone to take care of him. So they were like, "Yeah, we can take care of him. Well, you get better." And so you're probably like, "What is happening to this family? Like, they're not related to Katie. They're just taking care of his kid." But that's where it gets weird. Should we tell?
Go ahead.
So, I don't have a lot to say about this because I still don't really understand. But turns out Wyatt, the adopted son, is not who you think he is. I guess you would think he's just a random kid from an orphanage, but it turns out he's actually Hunter, Christy's son, who was born in Paranormal Activity 2 or 1 or something.
2.
Yes, so Katie stole him at the end of Paranormal Activity 2, and now we're here. He's been adopted to this family. What I don't understand is what happened? What happened that Hunter had lost contact with Katie for so long that he was in an orphanage, went through an adoption process, and seemingly has been living with his family for several years now in a different state.
Yeah.
This is something that they never really explain or hint at that I've been able to tell. The other thing is, who is Robbie? They don't tell. I still have never figured out who Robbie is, and in fact, I was like thinking of every possible thing, like who is this Robbie kid that Katie has with her? And I went to like look up an interview with the director, and he basically said, I don't know. The director of this movie does not know. He said that would be a subject for a different movie. So then straight up, this kid Robbie, he's a random child.
Yeah. And having seen all the Paranormal Activities there are to date, we still don't know who the fuck Robbie is.
No, Robbie never comes back again, and it's really sad because I like Robbie.
Robbie's funny as shit. In order to do the filming for this movie, not like literally mechanically through director and whatever, I mean like the way that footage was captured in this movie is through the use of a couple spy cameras put up by a Kinect, which is a very fun piece of machinery we get to see used in this movie. The Xbox Kinect. And also...
it kind of dates this, but it's charming.
It's charming. And then also Alex asks her boyfriend Ben, because Alex starts noticing weird shit happening with Robbie. She asks her boyfriend Ben to install spyware on all of the family laptops. And
yes. So he does. And this is a family who, they have a laptop in the kitchen for like recipes, I guess. And they leave this laptop open at all times.
Yep. The laptops are never closed. Fortunately, they're also always charged because the cameras are always on, which is nice because you could have security cameras in this $2 million house, or you could use iMacs. Sorry, iMacs, the desktop. You could just use MacBooks.
Yep.
So they have all these spyware installed laptops, which is really funny because we get scenes like the mom cooking and cutting peppers, and I really want to recreate this. Maybe I will if I go to edit this for putting it up on YouTube. But I want to recreate her knife cuts because as someone that's cooked for half a decade professionally, I gotta assure you, she wasn't doing what the recipe was asking. And
they were asking for julienne, and she was just like hacking away at those.
She was hacking
things.
And slashing. Hey guys, so it's the next morning after filming or recording what you were just listening to. And so I just reviewed the movie footage of her cutting bell peppers. And now I'm going to do my best shot to replicate that. This is kind of what her cutting board looked like in the beginning of the scene, and then the audio was asking her to julienne the bell pepper. Now, julienne is to cut in fine strips like this. This is julienne. And then it sounds like they want her to dice it afterwards, which would have been diced. What she was doing, and from the sounds of it, she had the bell pepper like this because it was crunching, which means she was cutting the skin first, which she was. But that's not entirely accurate because she actually had her hand like this. I'd never advise you do this. I'm only doing it for dramatic purposes. Please don't cut your shit like this. You're gonna cut your hand, alright? She was cutting like this. Yeah, that looks great. Very fine strips. Perfect for dicing, which we're gonna do now. I'm not gonna actually put my hand on the cutting board anymore because I'm terrified I'm actually gonna cut my finger off, but you get the idea. Yeah, look at that. That's good. That all uniform shape. Some of them have buddies, which is nice. It's little flavor packets. Uniform shape compared to, say, like dice like this, which isn't perfect either. But you know, I'm not J. Kenji Lopez alt. But yeah, that is how you cut bell peppers, like the lady, Mother Holly in Paranormal Activity 4. And don't worry, these will all go to use for dinner later. So I'm not just cutting up bell pepper to throw it away. But yeah. So Mom uses the laptop for recipes. It's really funny to watch her extremely confused at what a julienne cut could be. I'm sure the laptop was showing her a matchstick julienne cut, but dicing is a fine substitute for julienne. And then the dad, he uses laptops like I imagine most people would read books, where he'll walk up to it and he'll look at it with suspicion and then he'll walk away. He doesn't close it. He doesn't put it back on a shelf. He just looks at it, he taps it a couple times, and then he walks the fuck away, which is great because then it lets like the whole Looney Tunes anvil falling on your head thing happen with the fucking butcher's knife.
Yeah, the butcher knife falls like from the fucking ceiling, like right in front of the laptop. Somehow not. I'm thinking not catching like on the keyboard or something, which is like really good aim. Like, great job, Toby.
Toby is like a marksman, okay? Like he knows what he's doing. He's done this before. But
he knows what to do with a knife.
The main plot of the movie is that weird shit starts happening with Robbie, so Alex gets Ben to install spyware, and then shortly after Robbie goes home, Wyatt starts acting weird, and he starts saying, "My name isn't Wyatt, it's Hunter." So they...
Like, my old family needs me.
Yeah.
And Alex is like, "Where are your family?"
So neither Mom Holly nor Dad Doug seem too disturbed by Hunter's new persona that he is adapting or readapting. But Alex notices it because she's 15 years old and she has like a master's degree in psychology, so she knows something's awry. So she starts trying to resolve the matter on her own accord, but eventually what ends up happening is that they go out for... Oh, she was acting weird. She was acting really weird, and then she was on a FaceTime call or something with her laptop with Ben, and then she goes into the garage because she thinks she hears someone in the garage or something. No, the garage door opens because they have alarm system saying the garage door.
Yeah, so it's like one of those alarm systems, like garage door open or front door closed or open or something.
Yeah, so she
hears the garage.
She brings her entire MacBook into the garage with her to film what's going on.
But at this point, she's hung up on Ben, so it's just her. She's not talking to anybody. She just has her open laptop
with the spyware.
With the spyware on.
And then
which I guess good idea.
Yeah. And then the garage door leading into the house and the garage door going outside both close and lock her in. And then Toby, being a fan of Midsummer, starts the car up inside of the garage and attempts to suffocate her with carbon monoxide. And fortunately, she, in the midst of like having a suffocation fit on the ground directly in front of the camera of her laptop, which she hasn't used to try to contact anyone for help, especially since she was just on a call with Ben, she fits on the ground for a little bit, and then she grabs a golf club, smashes the window of the car, and uses the car to back out of the garage door. So because of that, Dad Doug decides he's going to take Alex out for dinner because he figures maybe it's because of, by the way, Doug and Holly are going through a divorce, or they're thinking about separating. I think they're staying together just until Holly gets out of high school is what they said.
Mm-hmm.
But Dad Doug decides maybe it's because of the issue between him and Holly that Alex is acting this way. So he takes her out to dinner. And that gives Katie an opportunity to mosey across the street and murk Holly. And then murk Ben, who comes over because he can.
Yeah, he just kind of shows up in this family's house like, what up?
It's actually a funny thing because, like, in the first scene where he does that, he just walks in through the door, and Doug, the dad, is like, did you just walk into my house without knocking? And Ben's like, yeah.
He just doesn't have any boundaries.
Yeah, so Ben comes over to check on the spyware and whatever. I think he drinks one of their Pepsis, and then he notices that Holly isn't home or something like that. So
and Alex. He didn't even check to see if Alex was home.
He just walks in, sees no one's home, grabs a Pepsi out of the fridge. And then he goes upstairs and Katie murks him. And then Alex and Doug come back home and Katie murks Doug. No, they go across the street because they saw, that's what it was. They saw Holly they saw Katie walking with Wyatt or Hunter into the house across the street. And so Doug runs over there to get Hunter or Wyatt. And Alex runs back home, finds her dead mom and boyfriend, and then runs across the street to get her dad, in which case Katie murks her and Doug's already dead at this point. And that's 4. Katie has Hunter. That's how 4 ends.
Yep.
Now, my biggest concern was, like, at this point, Katie has been, I guess, like, she should be a suspect to Mika's murder, right?
Yeah, I think the police are for sure looking for her. She's managed to evade it for this long.
Yeah. So she's a suspect at least to Mika's murder. But then after that, her sister and her brother-in-law also are murdered in their household. And then their child goes missing. So now we have a missing child and a woman who is AWOL after being a suspect for her boyfriend's murder and possibly her sister and brother-in-law's murder. And then 8 years pass, and in a state over, she has now made up a humble abode across the street from the child who she kidnapped, who has been put through foster care. Somehow, like, she lost Hunter, right? That's the whole idea?
Yeah.
So she loses Hunter, and then she relocates Hunter after he's gone through foster care and been adopted or whatever. And now the police are she's still evading the police. This is my biggest issue with, like, the main 4 is how are the police just not, like, finding this woman? Like, you would think they'd put posters out or use television. Television existed.
This is also the thing, like, in the beginning of this movie, she's taken to the hospital, but I have to assume she's not actually going to the hospital because they would have her identified in one way or another, right?
Yeah. You would think so.
Taken into custody after she was healed.
You would think, be like, oh,
so I don't know what actually happened, where she actually went.
You look and your name aligns perfectly with the woman who went missing in Carlsbad, California 7 years ago after murdering your boyfriend.
I think she just made something happen to make it look like just a reason for Robbie to go over there so he could, like, recruit Hunter back, I guess.
Yeah.
But overall, I think the, like, paranormal stuff had been toned down a little bit. This was just kind of just like a fun movie with, like, some paranormal stuff in it. Like, don't get me wrong, it was still there for sure, but I don't think it was, like, as much as, like, 2 or 3. Because, like, this family isn't being haunted, like, it's about Hunter.
Yeah.
It was fun. It was, like, it was just a fun movie.
I made a note.
I like this one a lot, too.
I like this one, but I don't think I like it as much as 2 or 1. I think if I had to, like, rank them as we're going right now, I'd probably put, like, 2, 1, 3, 4. Or, no, 2, 1, 4, 3. I'll put it above 3. But there was a couple things I made notes of. I was curious because, like, as far as realism goes, she's walking around with a laptop at several scenes, which was a little bit bothersome to me. Because it's like, why would you be walking around with a laptop? She has an iPhone. We see her have an iPhone. Mm-hmm. And if we're assuming it to be, like, to date, like it was 2012 in the movie as well as, like, when we're watching it, then it's an iPhone 5. She has a perfectly good camera on her phone to record and film. So why is she using like
Did they have
Sony HD camera on a laptop of all things?
Did they have FaceTime on mobile at that time?
I don't know. I would assume so. I mean, it was iPhone 5. Like it was when like the square shape was adapted. I think they had FaceTime by then.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I thought there was some pretty funny lines in the movie. I think it's the funniest movie of all of them so far.
Mm-hmm.
I made a note of when she gets Hunter or Wyatt from across the street after he's wandered off to go play with Robbie in his house across the street. She's telling Wyatt, you can't just walk off like that. And Wyatt replies with, why not? We live in a good neighborhood. I also made a note of the scene where she almost gets hit by a car, and in response to that, she blames the car by saying, fucking Prius.
Yes. Fucking Prius.
I also liked the scene where they're laughing at Robbie from upstairs in like the balcony or stairwell, whatever, of their house after Robbie just come over, and Ben made a joke at Robbie's attire by saying socks with the sandals. I love this kid. So it had some pretty funny lines. I thought it was pretty funny.
It was funny. I didn't take itself too seriously.
I don't think it'll age too well, but it was a nice like transition.
I mean, the thing I like about this movie is so far is that there's really not a whole lot of like bad looking computer like CGI graphics.
No.
It's mostly practical it looks convincing.
And I was,
for the most part, with a few exceptions that I can think of, but
there was a couple scenes with the Kinect too, because again we have to talk about the Kinect. It was like one of the biggest things with this movie is we get to see like the dot matrix.
Yeah, so they filmed that with an infrared camera because you can't see the dots on a regular camera.
Right. But a couple of the scenes that were pretty scary, I would say, with the Kinect was we got to see a human outline of a little boy sitting next to Hunter or Robbie during scenes where they're using the Kinect. Found out through the credits, they actually just used a kid in like a green morph suit.
That's cool.
So that's how they got that outline. That's really cool they were able to do that because it looks really good. And especially, I mean, I'm not a fan of like kid acting. I think most kids ruin most movies. Mm-hmm. But whoever the kid in that green morph suit was, they were doing great at being fucking terrifying. Because the scene where he's like following Hunter down the steps, he's like walking so unreal. Like he's legitimately stalking the kid behind him.
Yeah. Like the stuff with the Kinect, like as silly as it is, like use like the Xbox Kinect for a movie, like it made for like some really like subtle and effective scares, I think.
Now, I gotta make a note here. I didn't.
Oh, I like also that Robbie made like a me, and he just made it like 2 dots and like a flat mouth, and Ben is like, "Well, that's creepy, dude."
That's how you make your me's too. I don't believe there were any time lapse scenes in this movie, so it actually sucks. So I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This movie sucks. Moving on, we have Paramount Pictures presents The Ghost House. This movie's budget doubled from the fourth one. It went up to $10 million.
Are we skipping the marked ones?
We're going to do that one last.
Why?
Because we'll end on a good note.
Okay.
So, I don't know if it's 5th or 6th. Would this be the 6th canonically?
Yeah, this is the last one that was released.
We're fucking switching it up. So we're going to talk about the 6th one and then the 5th one. Because the 5th one, I think, was better, and I think you would agree.
Yes, absolutely.
So the budget...
This is the Ghost Dimension.
The Ghost Dimension. Oh, wait, hold on. 2015.
I don't think we actually said that.
Yeah, you're right. Holy shit. Yep, Ghost Dimension. This one came out in 2015. So it was a year after the marked ones, and the marked ones came out 2 years after 4. So there was a little bit of a gap there. But this one did terribly compared to the other ones. It
still made a lot of money.
Made a lot of money, but compared to the other ones, it wasn't as successful. It cost $10 million to make it. I don't know how. Maybe it was all the CGI shit. And they only made $78.9 million, which is half of what they made. Only. I know, that's pennies. But they only made 79, which is half of what they made off the fourth one. This one was a completely different cast of people.
Yeah.
Katie doesn't... Well, Katie and Kid Christy make an appearance in this movie, but...
Katie Ray, the adult, this is the only one that she hasn't showed up in.
Yep. She's not in this one. Was she in the marked ones?
Yes.
Okay. So she's not in this one, but we do have a reappearance of good boy Toby.
Mm-hmm.
Toby does
The
show up in this
demon.
one. We actually get to see his pretty little smile.
I also found out Toby is spelled Tobi instead of a Y.
Yeah, through the help of subtitles, we got to find out that Toby is spelled with an I, so we know that he's actually like a dirty girl. That's what How I Met Your Mother would have me to believe. Okay, girls that spell their names with I's are dirty. Thank you, Barney Stinson, for that proof. But this follows the family of Ryan and his daughter Layla. That's what cast credits said was Layla. I couldn't remember her fucking name, honestly.
I think they said Leela.
Leela? Okay, so it's
Even
Ryan,
though it's spelled
Emily,
like
Leela.
Layla.
And then Ryan's brother, Mike, who just went through a rough breakup, is spending Christmas with them, as well as Emily's friend Skylar.
I don't really know who Skylar is.
She's just there.
She's there.
She's there for fan service, which is another thing I've been avoiding talking about throughout these. Maybe I'll go back through it at the very end. But she is the most fan service thing aside from the one scene in Marked Ones. She's just literally, her character, it seems to be written just to be a woman with boobs that does yoga and is there. And I don't know. It was kind of hard to understand why she was there because she didn't even really talk all too much to Emily. She just was there. I think they had like one line in the beginning where she might have been talked to be as like, "Oh, you should invite your friend Skylar over because Mike's coming over and he's going to be lonely this Christmas." Maybe it was a setup.
It was really weird. She may well just not have been there.
But, so this takes place in a completely different time, different household, different people. It's Christmas time, and they're celebrating Christmas with
It's a Christmas movie.
Yeah, it's a Christmas movie. They're celebrating Christmas with their daughter, and Father Ryan comes across a box that has a mysterious camera in it. And this camera is built fucking wacky, and it's got like double the amount of shit you would need in a standard camera inside of it.
6 times, I think.
6 times?
It's built with like rainbow type and wires. So it can capture things that a normal camera wouldn't.
Yeah.
But the thing is that this house, this crazy big house that they're in, was built apparently on the same site that Katie and Christie's childhood home that we saw in Paranormal Activity 3 was burned down. So the house burned down, and then they built this house in place of it, which is the like connective tissue here.
Yeah.
And apparently this was the camera that they used in Paranormal Activity 3, but as we soon probably realize, it's not, because it doesn't
do the same
shit.
It
didn't do this in Paranormal Activity 3.
Yeah. And also, again, going back to the house being burnt down from 3, we don't get to see that. We just get to hear that it happened. We got to hear it in 1. We got to hear about it in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, there's no footage of the house being burnt down. And I don't remember any snippets of, like, newspaper clippings saying it was burnt down either. It's just a fact of nature now. The house has been burnt down. But they're in this house, this new house built on the burial ground of an old house. And it's fucking huge. And again, I don't know what Ryan does. Oh, no, he makes video games.
Yeah,
he's a
like
gamer.
He's like a Todd Howard type guy.
Yeah, he just makes games and they just work. And he has this beautiful camera that he found with several like wheels of footage. And we'll get into the footage in a little bit. But he finds the camera can do wacky shit. And it has like this cool effect where it like can make manifestations of dark ichor mass appear in the middle of the room.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the ghost dimension.
The first thing he sees that's like ghostly kind of just looks like the stuff you find in your vacuum after you emptied out, you know? Kind of just floating in the air in the middle of his living room.
It's like little like worms that are in your eyes and you're like reading for too long and you get like little squigglies and you're like, you look around, it follows your vision.
So actually, when I saw that, I was like, okay, good. Thank God. They're not going to make Toby look like a person, you know? Because I really don't like that.
I don't like it either. It's like
in general, I wish they wouldn't have done this at all. Like, I don't care to see the ghost. I think it's way more interesting to, like, imagine what it might look like than actually seeing it.
Yeah. But So this film, the plot of it is that he finds this footage of the occult, the midwives, and this is actually where we get like legacy of the midwives. I mean, I guess technically the marked ones, legacy is the midwives. This is when we like officially get to know what they are. But in this one, we get to know about them as well, and we get footage of Katie and Christy going through these occult practices, where Christy is demonstrating her telepathic abilities, basically, where she's able to walk through houses in her mind, and she's able to see shit as they are years later. Because it would have been in the 80s when she was doing that, and she's describing rooms in this guy's house now, which is kind of cool. I like that. I like that she's able to like time travel, and she's able to like see shit as it is in the future, which there's a lot of like time travel play, I guess, going on.
Yeah.
Especially with the last movie that we'll talk about. But so anyways, he finds this footage. He sees this little girl. She's describing his daughter's room in great detail, and he starts to get worried. So he starts setting up the camera to film shit at night, which results in time lapse footage.
Woo! Yeah. So he puts the fancy camera that has like 6. I don't know. The one that captures ghosts, and he puts like a regular camera, which creates some cool like dramatic irony where I don't know, it cuts back and forth between the different cameras, so it looks like nothing's happening here, but then when you cut to the fancy camera, it's like a ghost.
And I mean, the ghost, like, aside from when it gets its full anthropomorphic form, I think it looks pretty cool. Like, it's got black ichor tendrils coming off of it, and it's like lurching down from the ceiling, and it looks fucking cool. At first. And
it's making friends with this little girl, Leela. I guess it likes kids.
Well, it needs to, right? Like
they're impressionable.
Well, I thought it was recruiting it for the midwives.
Yeah.
Because it makes the dimension door.
Yeah.
But, okay, so it starts talking to Leela, and Leela gets to be friends with it.
Yep. And for a while, they think, it's just an imaginary friend. They're not too worried about it. But then she starts, like, in the beginning of the movie, she's, like, very bubbly and, like, very outgoing and, friendly. And then she kind of just, when she starts talking to Toby, she kind of becomes, reserved and quiet and doesn't really answer questions, and if she does, it's like very short answers.
She also starts doing fucky shit, like trying to burn a Bible.
Yeah, she goes downstairs and like throws some pages of the Bible in the fireplace.
Fortunately, she doesn't know how to use matches or something because she gets the gas ignition going, but she can't start it.
Yeah.
We also get the Chekhov's angel, the Chekhov's Christmas tree angel, which is shown in Act 1, so we know it must be broken in Act 3.
Yeah, they're like decorating a Christmas tree, and the mom is like, this is my angel my mom gave to me, the tree topper, and then one day you'll get it too, Leela.
Oh, the irony. It's like the second you see shit like that in any movie, you're like,
uh-oh.
That shit's dead. It's gone. Like, the second you see anything, it's like, this is a piece of memorabilia, and it means a lot to me, and I would hope nothing in the world would ever happen to it.
I'm like, that thing's going right in the toilet.
Yeah, 40 minutes later, that thing's, like, getting blown up by the slow-mo guys or something. But, so anyways, she starts getting a bit more friendly with Toby, and she starts trying to burn Bibles, and she starts drawing, like, occult symbols all over her room. And this leads to Ryan and Emily finally breaking the mold of one of them being a skeptic, because Ryan immediately is like, this is fucking weird, right? And Emily's like, you're goddamn right it is. And so they call a priest over. There's no, like, no, she's just being a little kid. She's just being, rebellious like little kids are. It's no big deal. It's no, like, oh, she's got an imaginary friend. All little kids have imaginary friends. No, the second Ryan is like, this is fucked up, Emily is in cahoots. So that was nice. I like that they broke the whole, like, skeptic mold. But, so she starts doing weird shit, and they call the father over to take care of her. And after they called through, like, 12 different priests, they finally got a hold of one.
Yeah, the ones are like, no, I'm not touching that.
Yeah, so the priest finally comes over, and Leela fucking bites him. Which is funny as shit to me. I don't know what's funny. It's like this rabid little kid who's acting like a turd, and then she just, like, leans over and bites the father, who's just like, is this your bear? Do you like this bear? What's the bear's name? And then she fucking takes a chunk out of his neck. So I thought that was kind of funny. But then after that, the
He's
movie
fine.
kind of got
He
fucked.
returns later.
He comes back anyways. He's into kids biting him on the neck. I don't know.
Gross.
So anyways, the father comes back over and they try to Constantine the ghost or something like that because they like set up a bathtub to like put him in full of holy water, and then they
Which is just tap water that he blesses, which is
funny
is what
shit.
tap water is what holy water is. It's just funny.
Yeah, and then they scratch that idea and they just put a whole duvet inside of the bathtub full of freshly blessed water.
That
And
they're
then,
going to throw over the demon.
yeah, they're gonna throw it over the demon, which gives us a really annoying like Cloverfield level monster effect where like the demon rises up out of the ground with the duvet on it and then like makes this really stupid, almost like Scorpion King level like face. Have you seen Scorpion King or like the Mummy? Where it's like
No.
the dust cloud and it's like this really shitty dust cloud face where it's like "Urgh," like the demon does that.
Yeah, so the demon, Toby is no longer like either a dust cloud or a tendril monster. He is like a human
Yeah.
now, and this is where it's lost me.
Yeah, he just is become human. And so he murks the
Which
father.
is the goal,
I guess.
but to the end of this movie, the effects get really, really, really cheesy. And like if I was saying that maybe like 2 or 3 were going a little bit too far, like this one was like going
Really far.
like down in the Mariana Trench deep
What about the 3D scene?
into the deep level.
You know, that was definitely a 3D scene where the guy gets like pierced through the chest with the tendril.
Yeah.
Was that Ryan?
Yeah, so they're doing like a seance for Toby. They have like a salt circle with a pentagram in it. Like it's very cheesy. But and then it was like kind of reminding me of it was like night vision, so everything's green. And then Toby's like appearing in the salt circle. You can see his face. He's like, and then there's like obviously scenes that were set up for you to watch this in 3D. And it reminded me of like sometimes when you go to the arcade and they have those like rides that you get into, not rides, those are games that you get into and sit down and it's like a screen and it's like zombies or something and you have to like shoot at them. I felt like I was on one of those. It was just so corny.
Yeah.
And it didn't feel like Paranormal Activity like at all.
At first, I was kind of into the fact that it didn't feel too much like the other movies, though. But you know what? Like, in hindsight, I think it was just because I had just finished House of Leaves, and so I was super into, like, the house being fucked up kind of thing. But then it turned out it wasn't the house. It was just that Toby was in there.
Yeah, that was the other thing. It's like they're talking to the priest about the stuff that's happening in their house and they're like, should we like go? Like our house is haunted, and it's like, no.
It'll just follow you.
It won't matter, it'll just follow you. And they're like, okay. But then they do end up deciding to like try and leave anyway. And then Leela is making like a very big deal of like not wanting to leave the house, and I'm like, it shouldn't matter.
Yeah.
If that's true.
I
But I
don't
guess
know.
it is haunted because this is coincidentally the same place that Katie and Christy lived at. So is it tied to the house? It doesn't seem to be. It seems to be in other locations in other movies, so I don't know.
I mean, maybe Leela didn't want to leave because she just did all that work building that fucking dimension door in the wall.
You know what? That's true. Yeah, so at the end, she also builds a dimension door with the pentagram symbols that she drew in her bedroom, which they left up. Like, call the priest over. She draws all these, like, weird Wiccan symbols on the walls, and
Priest looks at him.
they're like, priest is like, I don't know what the fuck. And then they just, like, leave them up there. They don't wash them off or anything.
Yep.
I'm like, that's weird. Why are we encouraging this? Like, I guess, are they worried that something bad is going to happen? Yeah, so she goes into the dimension door, and at the end of the movie, she disappears, but then she comes back. It's like Beetlejuice. Draw a door. Knock on the door. You know.
It wasn't that good of a movie.
I didn't like this one. Normally, I like the campy stuff. This one just didn't work for me. It took itself way too seriously for it to be fun.
Yeah. But on the
In my opinion.
On the other hand, marked ones, or as I put, pair of normals marked.
The final movie.
The final movie, actually the fifth, but the final we'll talk about.
Right.
This one was pretty good. Pretty watchable.
I like this one a lot. It takes place in a different setting because mostly it's been like very upscale, like white neighborhoods. This one is not. This one is in New Mexico
Yeah, I think so.
or Arizona.
Yeah, or even just like Southern California, like close to the Mexican border, because it seemed to be a heavily Hispanic area.
Yeah, so they're definitely in like a low income area. They're in an apartment building. So that was a really good change of pace for me. I think that was interesting. And I'm thankful they changed it up in that way. So it's about Jesse. He just graduated high school, and then it kind of follows him and his friends.
Just being kids.
And I don't know if you had any other notes written. One of their neighbors, Anna, is getting into some shenanigans, and there's also one of their neighbors, was that Oliver? Oscar.
Yeah.
He's also acting weird.
Oscar was, I think they said he was valedictorian of his class or something the year before, but he's taken a turn for the worse, and well, we'll just get into it. First of all, I want to praise this movie because it was bold enough to give characters last names again.
Mm-hmm.
Something I didn't think the movies would ever return to. But they gave the characters last names, which was really nice. They actually let me feel like I was watching real people again. But yeah, Jesse and his buddy, his best friend Hector, as well as their friend Marisol, are all just kind of farting around. They have a camera and they're just being kids. Jesse got this camera because someone had a camera during his graduation party and he thought that would look really cool. So he started doing amateur filmmaking, mostly Jackass style stuff, like taking a laundry hamper down some stairs or
making his friend Hector go down the stairs in the laundry basket with the GoPro attached to it.
Setting fireworks off by the dumpster. At one point, they snoop in on their neighbor, and we get the most fan service scene in the entire movie where they hear weird shit happening.
Yeah, so it's like their downstairs neighbor, and they heard something, so they put the camera like in the vent and point it like at their apartment.
And we see full.
If that gives you an idea of like the type of place, yeah. So there's a naked lady down there, and meanwhile they're up here like, oh my god, there's a naked lady over here. Like, come check this out.
Yeah, she's got weird shit painted on her stomach, bro. And Hector's like,
yo,
bro, let me see. I've been holding the camera for hours, bro.
She's so fine.
Yo, you see these titties, Hector? No, don't move it. I can't see the titties if you move it. And so, like, they're...
And I'm like, doesn't their neighbor, like, hear them? They're, like, in the vent. Like, surely the noise is carrying.
I mean, you would hope so, because it'd be funnier, but she doesn't seem to be too bothered. She's got more important shit going on. Because she's part of the midwives, and we get the full conclusion on that one a bit, where the midwives is a group of mostly women from the sound of it, right? And they take their firstborn son as a ritual for, as we discussed earlier, I think it was in the third movie, we're discussing that they are a ritual for youth and fortune. And if you give your firstborn son to Toby, who in my mind is like Pan, you get fortune and youth forever kind of shit.
Mm-hmm.
Except for you still live in this dinky, like, 2-bedroom apartment. But, you know, what you spend your fortune on is what you spend your fortune on.
You live in an apartment that you have to share a bedroom with your dad.
Yeah. But, okay, so Jesse and Hector and Marisol see all this weird shit going on, but they don't think too much of it because, like, who cares, right? And then Anna, their downstairs neighbor, who they all think is weird anyways because they hear screaming coming from her apartment frequently, she fucking dies. And they find this out because shortly after she dies, they go outside to set off fireworks.
By the dumpster,
By
like
the
you
dumpster.
do.
And then Oscar, their old classmate, is seen fleeing the scene.
Yeah, they go to light the fireworks, and it's like, bro, it's not working. They're like, try again. And I'm like, okay. So he goes light it, and then they wait a second, and it goes off. And then, like, right after it goes off, he jumps in the dumpster. I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ. And he runs away, and then they hear sirens, and then they go to check it out, and Anna's apartment is a crime scene.
Yeah, they literally just break into a crime scene.
Yeah. So they wait until all the cops are gone, and then they obviously can't go in the front door because it's got police tape on it, so they go into the back window. And they're just fully in there, just, like, looking at shit, touching everything. I'm like, no, stop it.
Filming it, too.
Yeah, and filming it. I'm like, no, get out of there.
But they film everything, and then they get spooked out of there by... Was it Oscar? Or was it his brother Arturo? Someone was in the apartment.
Someone was in there, and they're like, What are you doing? Why was he in there?
I think it was Arturo. I think he was coming to find Oscar. Arturo is like his brother. We meet later in the movie.
Right, but we have to assume he also like snuck in through the window.
Maybe he was trying to cover up Oscar, like make sure there wasn't any proof that he did it. Who knows? But they get spooked and they flee the hell out of there. But they have the footage, right? And so they're reviewing the footage and they notice weird symbols. And they remember the books they picked up that had weird symbols and writing in it. So they investigate it. And then that's when they discover the midwife cult. And so they decide that they're fascinated by the paranormal. So they're going to take a opportunity to go to the church across the street and try a summoning.
Yeah, they like spray paint a mirror black to make a black mirror. And Hector's like, why don't we just buy a black mirror? And Marisol's like, where the fuck are we gonna get a black mirror? I'm just gonna make one. And she's totally right. So they take the mirror in the church, they do this ritual, nothing seems to happen for a while, and then what is it, Jesse like goes downstairs?
Hector goes home, and then Jesse and Marisol hear shit downstairs and they think it's Hector.
And this is really the inciting incident when everything else starts to happen.
Yeah, this is the catalyst
to Jesse.
Yeah, only he gets affected by it. Because he's the firstborn child.
Yeah,
but
he has an older sister.
Yeah, he has an older sister, Yvette. I think I saw it. Yeah, Yvette. I wanted to point out though that during the scene where they're doing the summoning, it looks like nothing happens, but I actually noticed there was like someone walking around in the background.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if that was someone on set or if that was intentional, but either way, it scared the shit out of me. I had to stop the movie and rewind it.
Yeah, if you go and watch this, they're in the scene, and behind them, you can see like the stained glass windows. You can see someone moving around there a little bit. I missed it.
Super subtle. But, so they hear noises downstairs. They think maybe Hector is messing with them, so they go to investigate. And then in the bathroom, they hear someone knocking on the door. It's doing something fucky. So Jesse goes to investigate it because he doesn't want to see him scared in front of Marisol. And so he goes to open all the doors. And then the last door, the handicap stall on the end, is locked. So he sneaks underneath and he sees nothing. And then the fucking banging starts back up and they flee. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, this is like in the middle of the night also.
Yeah. So it was pretty spooky. I like that. It was a good scene. Spooky. I also was confused by how deep this church went, but they seem to go on like 4 flights of stairs. Churches.
After that, Jesse begins experiencing what he believes to be like supernatural powers. He like has Hector over and he's like, bro, check this out. And then he like goes to like fall backwards and then he doesn't fall. He just like kind of stays there suspended in the air. And Hector's like, yo, that's so fucking cool. And so then
Hector goes to try it.
And then, Jesse like gets up on a chair to try it. So he falls back and catches him. Hector's like, yo, that's so fucking cool. And so Hector wants to try it. So Hector gets up on the chair and then he falls backwards and he's like, fuck.
Just knocks his ass out.
And then they like Jesse keeps like, I love this whole sequence where Jesse's like, he feels like he's on top of the world, he can do anything. He like gets a air mattress and he like blows it up in one thing. It's like a cartoon.
Yeah, and then he has Hector lay on top of it.
Yeah, and then he deflates it, has Hector lay on top of it, and then he blows it up again, and Hector's like, yo!
Hector like flies off the mattress for a second.
Yeah, he like bounces off of it. He blew it up so fast.
The downside is that Jesse starts looking like he's been smoking meth because his like health is degrading.
Yeah, so he rides this for a little bit. He's like, I can feel like I can do fucking anything.
He does like an ollie off of like the second stair balcony.
Yeah, he like, what, does he have a skateboard or something?
Yeah, he like skateboards as an ollie off the second.
And he goes fucking high as fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he rides that for a little bit and then he starts looking really rough. He starts getting dark circles. He starts getting scabs. There's a scene where he's like looking in the mirror and he like pulls a hair out of his eyeball, which is awful.
Then it like right back in. Yeah, you love that, don't you?
Or wait, before that happens though, they're like driving around. Jesse feels awesome. They see like a party going on, and he's like, "Fuck it, let's go to a party. I'm cool as fuck." And then they meet two girls. They're like, "Let's take these girls home." You know, they can't take them to Jesse's apartment because he shares a room with his dad.
Can't take him to Oscar's because his mom is home.
So they're like, oh, I got a great idea. Let's go to Anna's condemned apartment downstairs. So they go into Anna's apartment, the former crime scene. They started cleaning her stuff out, so there's nothing really in there. And they start Jesse's making out with this girl for a little bit. And then he's like, oh, fuck, I gotta grab a condom real quick. So he leaves her there in this apartment.
Yeah.
And then
there's like
a
trapdoor for a cellar.
Yeah, there's like a cellar door, so you wouldn't see it. It's like a chain, and then it pulls open, and there's like a door under there that you wouldn't have seen otherwise. And so she pulls it open to see what's in there, just because she's bored. He's been up there for a long time.
Yeah, he's been grabbing a condom for about like the length of 4 condom grabs.
Yeah. And then someone like grabs her and tries to drag her in, so she's like, fuck it, I'm out. And then Jessie comes back and she's like, where'd my girl go?
Well, that's the funny thing is he like comes back looking for her, he can't find her. Mm-hmm. Then he goes over to Hector's house. I think I said Oscar earlier, I meant Hector. Mm-hmm. He goes over to Hector's house, and Hector's got his girl in his house anyways. So Hector didn't even stay inside of Anna's house with his girl. He was like, fuck it, let's go back to my house.
Yeah.
So he goes over there, and I think that the girl that he was going to sleep with ended up going back over to Hector's or something. I don't know. But we don't see her ever again anyways. Doesn't matter.
Oh, there was also a Haunted Simon game in this movie.
Yeah. Okay, so one of the things that Jesse discovers he can do is he can communicate with a game of Simon. And in doing so, he will ask a question to it. It has to be a yes or no for it to answer. And if it's a yes, it'll ring the green light.
Yep.
And if it's a no, it rings the red. And
it does it for like a really long time.
Yeah, it takes its time answering the question, and then it does it for a while. And he's really excited to show her one this super cool trick he found out. And so he shows it to his abuela, and she's like, get that shit out of here. Because, again, the Catholic abuelas in these movies know what the fuck is going on.
And if I was her, I would throw it in the garbage or just get it out of the house. But it comes back later after, they freaked out the grandma. Mm-hmm. And they do it again. And at this point, Jesse's starting to look bad.
Yeah. It's
starting to be no good for him. So he's asking questions, and the answers are bad.
They're not good.
They're not good answers. I don't remember exactly what they were. But then, so he's upset that he's not getting the answers he wants from the Simon game. So he takes the batteries out. And then it's still going.
Yeah.
Spooky.
Haunted Simon game, which out of all the like new creative machinery they've used in the movies, like a Kinect or a desk fan camera, I think the Simon is like the least impressive at first, but had the biggest impact. Because it was legitimately freaky. It's like you ask someone like, are you going to hurt me? And then it's silent for 6 seconds, and then a green light goes off. That's fucked. I would never play Simon ever again.
No.
So he starts looking bad, and then at one point his attitude completely changes, and I think it's supposed to be believed that like the demon has now taken over his personality. He does end up harming his dog, if not physically, then definitely like emotionally, because he holds the dog up to the ceiling with
his demon so powers. Sad. He like comes in, or Hector is like trying to check on him, and oh my god, what was the dog's name?
Chavo.
Little Chavo. He's a little Chihuahua. He's just like on the ceiling,
whining,
like trapped on the ceiling.
Yeah.
And Hector was like, "Dude, stop! Put him down."
And it was also sad because at that point Hector was trying to get through to Jesse to be like, hey man, like you're acting weird and I haven't seen you in a while and you don't look good, and like I'm your best friend, talk to me. And at that point Jesse's like, you're not my best friend. Mm-hmm. Which fucking hurt. I mean, like you see these two kids like hanging out the entire movie, and they're like thick as thieves, man. And then all of a sudden it's like the separation between the two of them. But fortunately Hector's a good friend. He sticks it through for Jesse, because as we see later in the movie, or we can just talk about that now. I mean, not much left to talk about. It's been going for almost 2 hours. They go to Arturo, who is Oscar's brother. Oscar is the one who is believed to have murdered Anna, the downstairs neighbor. And Arturo starts talking to him about he's investigated this midwives cult, who he believes Oscar might be in ties with because of Anna. And in doing so, we get a callback to a character from the second movie, which is Allie Ray, the daughter who wasn't at home when Katie came over and killed everyone.
Yes. She was the first one to talk about, like, the firstborn son dealing with, like, demons in the second movie. So that was really cool to see her come back and, like, advise them on what to do. So they get some, like, stuff to try to help him. They go to, like, the spiritual store. They have some, like, eggs. I don't know. And then this is where, like, the crazy stuff starts happening. There's a time jump in this one, but the effects in this last scene are really scary.
Before we get ahead of ourselves, so what ends up happening is they try to take care of the demon that has Jesse. And so the abuela, who I wrote her name down because she's an important character. Irma, his grandma Irma, and his buddy Hector, and I believe Marisol. They try to like exorcise the demon out of Jesse, and at first shit just goes crazy. Like crosses fly off the walls, and the entire living room gets like sucked up into one gravity ball and then thrown back. Like all the furniture is thrown everywhere. Mm-hmm. But we think it worked because Jesse's looking healthier the next day. I mean, he looks like he's going through a fever the next day, but he doesn't look like he's climbing on the walls and spinning his neck 180 degrees. But then we're wrong because while Grandma Irma's running a bath for him, Jesse's back on his bullshit, and he fucking murks Irma and flees. So Marisol and Hector go to look for him, and they know about this place, the house from the third movie, Grandma Lois's house from the third movie, because that's where Allie Ray said that most of the midwives go to do their ritualistic cults, or ritualistic beatings.
So they went there because they were thinking that they could find Jesse there, right?
Yeah. They were assuming that if he was to go anywhere, if he was affected by the midwives thing, he'd be going to this place. So they leave. They go to find him, and he finds them first in the street. And he, like, fucks with them while they're in the car. Like, he, like, jumps up on top of the car and, like, jumps onto the side of the window and breaks through the window, and he's fucking with them. But they are able to subdue him with the healing power of a metal pipe, and they throw him into the back seat of the car. But then, shortly after that, at the next intersection, their car gets T-boned by a fucking black SUV, and the people inside the SUV pull Jesse out of Hector's car, and they flee. So then they recruit the help of Arturo, and I believe it's his buddy Santo, and the two of them just come loaded with, like, Tech 9s and, like,
they look
Spas 12s, and they go off to the house guns a-blazing.
They look like they mean business.
Yeah.
So now we're in Grandma Lois's house, and at first they don't see anyone in the house, and then they quickly realize that they are surrounded by creepy witches all around, and that there's really nowhere to turn.
Besides just shoot them. Which works at first.
Yeah, they do a couple of them.
Yeah, they
can get a couple of them.
But they get surrounded.
So there was a cool scene where we think that Hector was like walking around in one of the rooms, and then it comes and there's like a chair, but everything is like covered in, all of the furniture and stuff is like covered in like plastic, or it's covered in curtains. And so he comes up, he sees this chair is like covered with a curtain, and you can see something moving underneath it. So you're thinking like someone's gonna pop out and jump at you, but then they don't, and then someone crashes through the ceiling. And it's Marisol. She's dead. Oh shit. So Hector is like running the fuck everywhere, trying to look for somewhere to hide. He ends up being in the closet. Something happens. There's a time jump. Now we are back in Paranormal Activity 1.
Yeah, and so this is probably the best part of the movie.
In Paranormal Activity 1, the way it ended, Katie finally does her thing where she is getting up in the middle of the night, staring at Mika, and then like venturing downstairs to do her bullshit. And then the last time she gets on the bottom stairs and she just like starts screaming bloody murder, just Mika. And then Mika comes down, and then you know what happens for the rest of it. So in this movie, Hector goes into this closet in the house. He gets warped in time to the first movie. He's in the house. He's in their kitchen. And he's like, what the fuck is going on, dude? But then we see Katie come downstairs. And this is when the night that Micah died. Just comes down the stairs. And she's like coming closer to him in the kitchen. And she doesn't realize that he's there for a minute. And I'm thinking maybe she just had like straight up like was possessed, but also maybe she just had a sleeping disorder and was a sleepwalker. And, you know, combination of those two, it seems like no good. So he sees him, like stares for a minute, and I think she realizes like that there's someone in her house, and she's like starts yelling for Mika, like screaming bloody miracle, just a stranger in her house. Yeah, right.
That's legitimately terrifying.
So then Mika comes down. She grabs a knife and then stabs Mika, which maybe she meant to stab Hector this whole time.
Maybe she was just confused.
Yeah. So that was really cool. I loved that they legacied that part because we didn't really know why she screamed.
Movie ends kind of stupid though. Hector turns to run from having just seen a man get stabbed in his own kitchen, only for a time warping occultist to pop out of the hallway and grab him, and then black screen.
Yeah, I could have done without that, but otherwise, I loved this movie. I thought it was great and meaningful.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I think it's like, again, if we're ranking the movies in order of like favorites, I'd probably put like 2, 1 marked ones, 4, 3 House.
Ghost Dimension.
But
at the very bottom.
Yeah, Ghost Dimension at the very bottom far.
That's definitely an outlier.
But
there's another one coming out soon.
Yeah. Now there's one thing.
I think this year.
There's one thing I wanted to point out that they did in the marked ones, and that is that we, for a brief moment, I mean, we had to like pause the movie several times, but for a brief moment, we get to see a glimpse of Mika and Katie's DVD collection.
Yes.
And it's fucking, some of the movies are good. They had Being John Malkovich.
Yeah, some of them that we could make out were Being John Malkovich, Madagascar,
The Mask. They have Blade Runner, which I quote you saying, "Oh, they got some real shit." Yeah, they had the Titanic. And it was a hodgepodge.
It was kind of hard to see because it was like at a severe angle.
Yeah, we had to like pause the movie several times. Secondhand Lions.
Yeah, it was fun.
But yeah, it was a pretty fun movie. I mean, it had dogs getting harmed in it, so that kind of sucked. But it did not contain any time lapse scenes.
No, unfortunately. Overall, though, I think this one was a really good.
Yeah, it was a really good out of good.
Yeah.
There was a funny scene where the grandma had a shake weight.
Oh, yeah. And then Jesse comes in and he's like, "What are you doing, Grandma?" I'm like, Grandma's like, "I'm literally just minding my own business using my shake weight."
Yeah. It was the Paranormal Activity movie franchise, for the most part, gets a bad rep. I think it deserves much better of praise than it gets, but to each their own. If you don't like spooky ghost house movies and found footage style movies, stay away from Paranormal Activity. You're not going to find anything in it that you like.
No, but I definitely recommend rewatching them because all of them are like, they're funny. It's just a good ghost movies to watch. And
if you're looking for a really dumb Christmas movie that's not a Christmas movie to watch, and you've read House of Leaves and you liked Uncle Tom, the character from the book, and you want to see a human version of that in a movie, watch Ghost Dimension. Otherwise, don't ever watch Ghost Dimension. You could literally not watch it. The only detail that was in that movie that was important to the whole franchise is that they tied in the birth date phenomenon, where all the children were born on June 6th.
Yeah, which is like, okay.
Yeah. Ooh.
Spooky.
June 6th and on a year ending in a 6. That's really edgy, Hot Topic level shit, but it's fine. I mean, none of the movies were really even the Ghost Dimension wasn't really terrible. It was just some stuff I don't like, and you brought it up earlier, I don't like when creatures are anthropomorphized. There's like a trend in a lot of different, like between sci-fi, horror movies, and whatever, anything that has aliens in it, the aliens always get anthropomorphized as if like we're the ultimate intelligent form, and it bums me the fuck out because you could have some really cool. Toby's version of himself before he has a human form is so much cooler because it's so like ambiguous, and like okay, one of the movies that I think a lot of people
look metal as fuck.
Well, I think a lot of people have problems with Arrival because of how slow paced it is. But I love that movie because the aliens aren't human shaped. They're like squids, and they don't have like human style language either. Like I like
or even
the
characteristics,
idea,
really.
Yeah, so I like the idea of like intelligence not ending as a human form. And when they made Toby look like he did at the end of it, it was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. But I did think it was really cool. There was a scene that felt like a callback to the Velociraptor scene in Jurassic Park where Mike or Mark or whatever and Ryan are hiding in the kitchen behind the cabinets, and they like look up and they see Toby standing there, and then they like sneak back down. And they're like, oh, they're right there. What are we going to do? But they didn't end up throwing a soup ladle to escape the Velociraptor. They just ended up running away anyways.
Yeah. I think as far as like amount of ghost activity, like definitely the Ghost Dimension took that one. I felt like it was constant. It
was really quantity over quality at times though.
Yeah.
But it was cool. I mean, I don't know. If you really want to watch any of them and you don't care about having like a gap in your canonic knowledge, watch the second one. I think the second one and marked ones are the two best ones.
Yeah, I think you could even watch the second one without having any other knowledge of the other ones, and it would be just a great watch.
Yeah.
I don't think I could say that for like the third one or the fourth one.
No. If you want to watch one that's just really over the top and stupid, watch Ghost Dimension. If you want to watch one that's funny, watch 4. Otherwise, watch all 6 of them. It's up to you entirely. I mean, we did it.
I'll probably be watching the new one that comes out, but
definitely.
It'll be interesting to see what they do. How they change it up, or if they don't.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think with that, we're going to call it.
It's been going about 2 hours.
Yeah. For any of you who are still in the chat, we appreciate you sticking around. I don't know how frequently we'll be doing these, but it'd be fun if anyone has any suggestions for movies you want us to watch or talk about. You can, I mean, if you have my social media, you can throw them at me. If not, if you want to post it in the chat. I don't know how chat logs are saved on Twitch, but do you have anything else you want to add?
No.
Alrighty. Well, thanks for swinging by, guys. Have a good one.